Hassan Nasrallah is looking for a new hideout, according to publications that just came out. Now, I've been telling you this for a couple of videos that talk is cheap, and that is especially true in the Middle East. Just a few days ago, Hassan Nasrallah, the fearless leader of Hezbollah, told you on his televised speech that he fears nobody, that he wants to take on Israel and Cyprus for helping Israel and NATO forces and the US, and he basically has no fear. And now we just find out that his Iranian overlords called him on the phone last night and told him, look, dude, Israel has your location. You need a new hideout. And now he has a new hole that he crawled into. And he's going to remain there for the foreseeable future because this man has not left his hideout and has not appeared publicly in the open since 2008. The last time Hassan Nasrallah, the fearless leader of Hezbollah, was in the outside world of the public was before the United States hit the subprime mortgage crisis in 2008. Just to kind of show you the difference between the talk and the hubris and the behavior of a little rat in his hole. Now look, I think that he understands what a lot of people already understood, that Israel is going to have a very different approach to the war with Hezbollah than they had in Gaza. Gaza had a lot of complexities. It's not really a sovereign country, a lot of civilians. It's a complex situation. Lebanon is a massive country. It is a sovereign country, and it's been firing rockets to Israel for, about 6 to 8 months. And this is a full war between two nations. Now, a lot of people who have no idea what they're talking about, no military experience, no geopolitical understanding, in fact, very diminished brain power, they talk about the horrendous things that Israel has done in Gaza. And yet, any military person will tell you that they've been very gentle with Gaza compared to what could have been if this was Russia fighting against Hamas. So this time in Lebanon is going to be completely different, and Nasrallah understands this. Israel is going to try to take out the entire military command of Hezbollah and the entire rocket sector that they have right up on the border to prevent any sort of a preemptive strike by Hezbollah. The Israelis have better intel, better execution abilities, better air force, etc., etc. So they're not going to be gentle about it. It's going to be a massive hellfire unleashed on Lebanon within the first few hours to kind of preemptively stop Hezbollah from causing major damage. And they're going to target Hezbollah leaders. Make no mistake about it. Now, they did actually terminate the existence of his boss back in 92. His name was Abbas Musawi. And by the way, when that happened, Nasrallah took over and he was more moderate than his predecessor. But now we understand that moderation in the Middle East is a very complex term, as Barack Obama found out. Now, Israel has already killed about 10 senior Hezbollah commanders over the past few months. And it shows Hezbollah, it shows Nasrallah that the Israelis have a lot of good intel. They probably have a breach. All this intelligence about the killings of the Iranian personnel in Syria, the Hezbollah senior commanders, all of these things, they show that Hezbollah, they have a leak. Israelis have an in Hezbollah. And Nasrallah understands this, and it's a huge issue for him because at the end of the day, despite the hubris, despite this talk about taking on NATO and Israel and Cyprus, he's a very logical, calculated, risk-averse person. So what this means is that despite the big talk that he's been talking of the past few weeks, he's actually on the run. And that shows a lot about Hezbollah's real position, not the talk. Now, you see, IDF is literally days away from finishing off the last battalion of Hamas in Rafah. That doesn't mean that Hamas is going anywhere, because Hamas, at the end of the day, is a concept, is a guerrilla organization. It still has a lot of operatives. And besides, the people in Gaza, they think Hamas. So eliminating the idea of Hamas, eliminating Hamas as a guerrilla organization, that's not going to happen, at least on the foreseeable future. But the elimination of Hamas as an organized fighting force is days away, which means that the Israelis are about to finish up. And what's going to happen is they're going to take over fully the entire Gaza Strip in the following manner. They're going to absolutely own the Rafah crossing, the Philadelphia route. They're also going to carve Gaza into two pieces, and they're going to own that corridor as well. And they're going to go in and out of Gaza nonstop for the next few years, just like they do on the West Bank. Essentially an Israeli military control that is based on two separate parts, South Gaza and North Gaza. Now, the Israelis understand that they have not destroyed Hamas, but they also understand that it's going to take years to clean up the guerrilla reservoirs of Hamas. So they do want to divert forces to the north of Israel so they can prep for the potential war with Hezbollah. And they're going to keep fighting with limited forces in and out like they do in the West Bank. Now, over the past few days, we heard reports that came out on the Telegraph that the Beirut airport in Lebanon, Beirut is the capital of Lebanon, is actually being used by Hezbollah to store massive amounts of missiles and rockets and whatnot. according to Lebanese unnamed sources. Now, of course, the politicians in Lebanon, whatever is left of them, basically cried and said, no, that's not the case. They arranged a very public press conference. They let journalists walk around the airport, but didn't give them full access to actually examine everything, and they haven't really had over their experts to verify these claims or not. It doesn't matter. The idea here was that I don't think it was a Lebanese source at all. I think it's an Israeli message. I think the Israelis are sending a message to Hezbollah. A few days ago, Hezbollah put out a video saying, hey, we're going to hit these locations, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, important locations inside Israel if a war is going to break out. And these are sensitive places. So the Israelis are now communicating to Hezbollah indirectly saying, hey, we're going to take out that airport right away. That's going to be our first target. And the idea here is very, very simple. They're kind of showing you that it's a very similar case to what happened in the Beirut harbor. Because in 2020, if you remember, there was a massive explosion that had nothing to do with the Israelis, where a massive storage of weapons by Hezbollah literally exploded by accident and caused one of the most horrific accidents in the history of Lebanon, in fact, in the history of the Middle East. So the Israelis are basically establishing the fact that the airport in Beirut is no longer a civilian target. It is a military target, and once the explosions start, and they're going to be tenfold what they should be, it's because of all the missiles and the weaponry that's been stored there, not because of Israeli bombing. In the meantime, the Iranians are moving a lot of their militia forces from Iraq into Lebanon, quite easily, by the way, through Syria, basically prepping for the war. Now, on top of it, we heard that the Egyptians basically said no to any involvement in the day-after efforts in Gaza. Essentially, what it shows us that the Israelis have not finished off Hamas. I told you this months ago. The only way for Egypt to get involved in the day-after activities in Gaza is once Hamas is finished. This is proof that the Hamas organization still exists and still able to cause a lot of pain internally in Egypt and cause a lot of mayhem through the Muslim Brotherhood connection and destabilize the Egyptian regime. So the Egyptians saying no means that Hamas is far from finished, at least in its ability to influence what's going on in Egypt. Now, Biden and Netanyahu are in the collision course. Now, when I say Biden, I mean the administration. Netanyahu recorded an English video where he says that the U.S. is delaying weapon shipments that are required to fight Hezbollah and fight Iran, which is the common enemy of the U.S. and Israel.
When Secretary Blinken was recently here in Israel, we had a candid conversation. I said I deeply appreciated the support the U.S. has given Israel from the beginning of the war. But I also said something else. I said it's inconceivable that in the past few months, the administration has been withholding weapons and ammunition to Israel. Israel, America's closest ally, fighting for its life, fighting against Iran and our other common enemies. Secretary Blinken assured me that the administration is working day and night to remove these bottlenecks. I certainly hope that's the case. It should be the case. During World War II, Churchill told the United States, give us the tools, we'll do the job. And I say, give us the tools and we'll finish the job a lot faster.
Now, the Biden administration initially denied this, but they later confirmed that they are delaying it. But they said, look, we're not really delaying. We're not expediting like we used to. We're just going through the normal procedures, which is kind of admitting that Netanyahu is right. Now, I think what's happening here is that the Biden administration is playing a double game. On the one hand, they're telling their constituents that they're fighting against Iran, they want to stop Iran. On the other hand, they're continuing the Obama appeasement policy where they want to share the neighborhood with Iran, essentially make a deal with Iran on the backs of Hezbollah and Israel. Treat Hezbollah like an Iranian proxy, trick the Israelis like a U.S. proxy, and make a deal over their head, throw the Israelis and the Hezbollah under the bus, and make a deal where Iran gets to kind of own the Middle East. That's the idea. That's the policy. But that's not the rhetoric. So what Netanyahu is doing with this message is basically kind of threatening to the Biden administration to expose what's really the policy of this administration versus the rhetoric right before the elections. And by the way, the consequence of this video basically was that the shipments of weapons that was supposed to be delayed got expedited all of a sudden right after the Netanyahu video. So it's a really weird game where Netanyahu is basically playing against Biden right now in a race against the clock because of the internal elections, because of the policies. It's a very dangerous game where Netanyahu and Biden and Trump are in this triangle trying to wait each other out to see who survives this. Now, that's not a healthy situation, but it is what it is. I bring you the facts, the truth, not the made-up BS you hear in mainstream media. If you want to support this channel, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/TomNashReport. Would love to see you there. Would love to hear from you. Comment below if you have any comments. If you agree, if you disagree, it's fine as well. I'll see you in the next one.